A considerate couple will have a better relationship than an inconsiderate couple. Two faithful people will always have a better relationship than two unfaithful people. Two disciplined people will always have a better relationship than two undisciplined people. Virtue makes for great relationships. Why? Virtue is the foundation of character. You can build your life on the foundation of virtue such as patience, kindness, humility, gentleness, forgiveness, and love. Or you can build your life on the foundations of whims, craving, fancies, illegitimate wants, and selfish desires. The former will create a life of passion and purpose, while the latter will create an irritable, restless, and discontented life. Is virtue out of date? Only if we are no longer interested in having great relationships. In our relationships, we have to make the same choice to build upon a foundation of virtue or upon a foundation of selfishness. If we choose to base our relationship upon the foundation of a common goal to become the best version of ourselves and understand that the best way to pursue this goal is by growing in virtue, then our relationship will likely be marked with joyfulness and contentedness. On the other hand, if we choose to build our relationship on the unsteady and ever-shifting whims, craving, and self-centered desires, our relationship will more than likely be marked by an irritable, restless, and discontented spirit. Of course, if we have already started building a relationship on the shifting grounds of personal pleasures rather than the solid ground of common purpose, it may be necessary to demolish certain parts of the relationship in order to build a stronger foundation. This process is painful and requires an enormous discipline and commitment on the part of both people, because it is all too easy to return to our previous patterns. Spiritual intimacy is the most rewarding form of intimacy and the hardest to achieve. Once you have discovered or you have tasted spiritual intimacy, you will discover that physical, emotional, intellectual intimacy, while breathtaking in their own right, do not belong in the same realm as spiritual intimacy. You will also discover that as you and your spouse grow in spiritual intimacy, your experience of physical, emotional, and intellectual intimacy will also be heightened. At the core of the human person is the soul, and it yearns to be fed and nurtured. In our quest for intimacy, we must move beyond our preoccupation with the physical and understand what each of the four aspects has to contribute to our relationships. Physical intimacy is limited, but emotional, intellectual, and spiritual intimacies are limitless and relatively unexplored. And truth be told, if you truly wish to experience the upper reaches of physical intimacy, you must first explore and develop the depth of emotional, intellectual, and spiritual intimacy. You should pay careful attention, especially if you are just beginning a relationship, to see that we grow steadily in each of the four areas of intimacy. The danger is that we develop one type of intimacy very quickly and neglect the other form. This imbalance creates a distortion in our relationship. Allow me to draw this comparison as an example. Sometimes a young woman who is very beautiful learns quickly that people pay more attention to her than others and are more willing to be of assistance, want to please her, and in many cases will give her whatever she wants simply because she is very beautiful. At the same time, the young woman thinks this is wonderful. Her friends too may crave the attention that is being showered upon her, but in time it begins to stunt her growth in other areas. She begins to overvalue her physical appearance, becomes preoccupied with it, and begins to view reality in relation to her physical beauty. As a result, she neglects other aspects of her personal development, which over time will create a distortion in her character. The same thing can, of course, happen to a young man. The point is that each of the four aspects of the person should be nurtured equally. It is the maturity of all four that creates harmony and fulfillment for the whole person. Another very common abuse takes place among people who consider themselves religious and spiritual. They may pursue their spirituality with reckless abandon, but neglect their physical, emotional, and intellectual aspect. The result is, again, a distortion of character. The same thing happens in relationships. When physical intimacy is established too quickly, we may think it is wonderful, but almost immediately it begins to stunt the growth of the relationship. We begin to overvalue physical intimacy, become preoccupied with it, and begin to judge and value our relationship on the basis of physical intimacy. As a result, we neglect the nurture of the emotional, intellectual, and the spiritual. Over time, the neglect will create a distortion in its very character. Intimacy is sharing the journey to become the best version of ourselves with another person. It is a mutual self-revelation that takes place gradually, cannot be rushed, and can only be realized by the commitment of time. Most of all, it is critical that we recognize that intimacy cannot be confined merely to the physical realm or to any other realm. So, as we journey through this intimacy series, I implore you to take your time and see how best you can benefit from this whole experience to enrich your relationship, build your spouse, and enjoy togetherness.